Hi everyone. My name is Brooke Quirk, and this is my presentation of my case study. So the client that I decided to conduct this case study on was a 4-year-old female with ASD. She lives with her mom, dad, and twin sister, who also has a diagnosis of ASD and is receiving services from us. She receives in-home services, and therapy is conducted in a living room setting. And the major concern that we had was that this young girl would constantly elope from therapy space. Some reinforcement and consequences that sort of played into this. So first, we'll talk about reinforcement that may have led into the elopement. Is oftentimes mom would be babysitting their cousins or other family members would come over, and this young girl is extremely attached to her mother, and would almost get jealous if her mom was giving attention to other kids, things like that. Um, Likewise, she just wanted to be near her sister. So she's a twin. They have that bond that you and I will never understand unless you're a twin. And so that was definitely something that we had to consider. Also, mom really would often give into needs when protesting would occur. So if the young girl started to scream or wanted to leave, things like that, mom would just say, okay, that's fine. Like they can come over here. And finally, another reinforcement aspect to consider is oftentimes when a demand was placed, the young girl would elope. So if, for example, if we were doing a matching program, we'd say match, she would run away immediately. So leave the therapy room, things like that. A consequence that we really have to look at is mom would yell at her anytime she'd leave the room. So she would get access to that attention, which is one of the hypothesized functions that we got from conducting an FBA, so functional behavioral assessment. So through that, we would do interviews and direct observation. And so we interviewed mom, dad, technicians, things like that. And then also my BCBA and I just directly observed the young girl and her elopement, things like that. And that's how we sort of came up with these hypothesized functions. So both attention and escape. And from that, we were able to develop a behavior intervention plan. And so some of the antecedent strategies that we came up with were putting in predetermined breaks every 15 minutes. And so after 15 minutes, she was able to go on a break, hang out with her sister, see her mom, play with her cousins, things like that. Likewise, we also implemented videos throughout therapy. So we would pause to do programs. And I'll kind of elaborate on this a little bit more in the next couple of slides. But we found videos were extremely reinforcing for them, more reinforcing than toys, things like that. Also, physical play was very reinforcing. So high engagement in physical play when she wasn't eloping, just to kind of positively pair us with therapy and show like, oh, we really don't have to elope. And kind of later throughout this intervention, we determined that we were going to put a gate by the stairs just to hopefully like provide that physical barrier and to block the young girl from running upstairs by her mom. Some consequences that we put in this intervention plan was we would wait for her to come back. We'd wait about 5 minutes. If she didn't come back, we would go retrieve her. We would provide no attention and no vocal verbal language such as come back or we can't run away, things like that. And then finally, we would engage her in highly preferred activities when she was back, just to, like I mentioned before, just to positively pair us, the technicians, things like that, with therapy. It's a fun time. We don't have to elope. And the reinforcement behavior that we came up with was a form of functional communication training. And we would do that via vocal verbal language and with an AAC device. She was fairly vocal verbal, but we also like to use that AAC device as extra assistance as well. Some motivating operations that we took into when we were considering this intervention were these mini force videos. They're just like little videos you can find on YouTube. Whenever she would effortfully respond, we would provide her with these videos. They were extremely reinforcing. And we would not provide mini force videos outside of therapy and during break. So that demand or that like stimulus was so highly preferred. Like she knew she's like, oh, if I stay in the room, I'll get mini force videos, things like that, that establishing operation. We also put DTT programs on pause. These demands that whatever we would place, such as I mentioned before, like, oh, we got a match, she would elope. And so, the demands often served as like warning signals. So she's like, oh, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And so we really heavily focused on that in the beginning. So such as like imitation targets really low demand programs that we could do and still target things. The schedule of reinforcement that we initially had was a continuous reinforcement, or a fixed ratio of 1. And then kind of across the intervention, you can see here, we moved on from the CRF to an FR3. So we maintained that for a few months. So the fixed ratio of 3 we did after 3 programs, or after 3, excuse me, 3 trials, she was able to access a video. And so let's say we'll bring back the matching. So she does 3 matches effort-free. Then she gets the video. She gets access to watching these mini force videos. We maintained that for a few months. And then as we were seeing more consistent progress with, or like a decrease in elopement, a more progress of staying in the room, working on programs, things like that. We eventually moved on to a fixed ratio of 6. So 6 responses, then she'd get access, and then a fixed ratio of 9. And as you can see, this intervention that we put in it definitely showed dramatic improvement in eloping. So at the beginning, there was very high variability. And like, for example, on October 30th, she didn't elope at all. And then on what this looks like, December 16th, she eloped 19 times. And so it's like, as you can see, it was pretty high. And as soon as we put in those preferred videos in May, there was a dramatic drop in elopement. And then as we put in that baby gate, we did have to make some modifications throughout the intervention. But as soon as we put in that baby gate, there was 0. No instances of elopement. That was maintained for about a month. And then it mastered. And you can see this trend line, this beautiful trend line going down. So yeah, I would say that this overall was a successful intervention. And yeah, thank you for listening to my presentation. I hope you all enjoyed.